Everyone out there in YouTube land, Dan here from GeekCast Radio, doing something a little bit different than I normally do. Usually I do comic book reviews, comic hauls, things of that nature, but recently I went home and my parents were cleaning things out and they're like, hey, we have a box of your stuff that we need to get rid of. And I'm like, okay. I moved out, around, I don't know, 2007, so it's been over a decade, but they've had stuff that I guess they've been meaning to get rid of, and they handed it off to me, and I'm like, oh, I'll take a look at this. And I thought, you know what? In today's day and age, this actually might make an interesting video. Maybe like the geek version of opening of Al Capone's vault, but hopefully this actually has interesting things in it. So I have not opened it yet. I wanted to take a look in it, kind of get my honest reaction. Kind of like a loot crate that was mailed a decade ago and it had a bunch of childhood memories and interesting things. So I really don't know what's in this. She indicated like some figures and things of that nature. So should be fun. If there's actually nothing of interest, I probably end up won't posting this. But if there's some things I think are worth talking about, I don't know. If you grew up around the same time as I did, maybe there'll be some nostalgia there with me. So we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and get it open. As I said, we'll see how this goes. Whoa, well, interesting. Well, it's full for that matter. But the first thing, not hugely nostalgic, but actually kind of timely. This is, and still in the package, very dusty. Man, there's a coat of dust on this thing. Sorry for the glare, but it is a Sentry figure, but it's a Marvel Legends Sentry figure. One of the earlier versions, I don't know which line this was from, but I did collect some of the Legends when they first started coming out. This was the Build-A-Figure for, I think, Giant Man, and this was the bearded version of him, so it was the ultimate version. So I think that's why I kept it in the package, because I got the bearded version. But yeah, this had the line with, we had classic Thor, Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth, Wolverine, because if there was a Marvel Legends line, they always said Wolverine. But a lot of cool figures within this. So I do have some, like if you look behind me, there's the Build-A-Figure for that of the Sentinel, and I have the Build-A-Figure Apocalypse, but I never made Giant Man, so interesting. But yeah, I don't know if that's worth anything. I've not really been keeping up with my figures as of late, but we'll see. There's some nonsense here that's not really important. Looks like just some Xbox games guides. Oh, some classic Jim Lee art. This must have been from the poster book that I had. I had these on my wall as a kid. So we have Magneto and Deadpool, Corsair. This looks like a bunch of them. Oh, Mystique. Omega Red. Yeah, I took these out of. It came in like a. I remember they came in like just an X-Men poster book, and took them out and put them on the wall. So I didn't really care if they were worth anything. I just really liked X-Men, so I decorated my wall with it. So I really love that Magneto. It's great Magneto. Oh, we hit the motherload of figures. If you can see, there's a bunch of figures in here. So what's interesting for me, what got me into X-Men and geekdom and things of that nature, like many was the 90s X-Men cartoon, but very much the actual action figures, really. Like I read some comics, but really where a lot of my interest lied was with the action figures. So this is here, this is near the end of when I stopped collecting. They had this weird line of different figures that all were kind of different, like all bigger and weirdly shapen. This is, of course, Colossus. The very first Colossus I had was like half this size. It was really small. All the figures are all the same size, no matter, there was no such thing as like adjusting back then. But this is when they started doing that. But I had a lot of fun playing with this guy back in the day. Also, Eric the Red. I don't know. He plays a big part in the the Dark Phoenix Saga. I remember picking him up. Actually, weirdly enough, I remember the very moment I picked this character up. I got him on Black Friday on Thanksgiving one year, and it was around that time or shortly after I picked him up. He first appeared on the X-Men cartoon, so I was like, oh, very cool. The figure I just picked up, he's now on X-Men when the Phoenix Saga first started being released, so I thought that's pretty cool. Eric the Red. I don't really remember much about him. I just remember that I thought he looked cool because he had horns, which have been broken off. They're no longer there. He had a weird gun, too, that I no longer have. But, yeah, interesting. Eric the Red. One of my favorite figures growing up was Corsair, because he was kind of like a cool pirate. He had a sword, and like a classic kind of musket, and similar to that. And he was a space pirate, which you can't get better than space pirates. And he was Cyclops' father as well. So this is, leader of the Starjammers, Corsair. He was he doesn't really even show up in comics anymore. So maybe with the relaunch of all the X-Men line, we'll see him show up. I guess maybe you can hopefully set his son straight if he ever comes back. Wow, we got Blade this was from the movie, I think the very first movie. And he actually, I think this originally came with a jacket of some sort, but it's obviously no longer there. He's got his Blade tattoos, and that was kind of the start of all the crazy comic book movies. That's really the first one that really broke out, and then shortly thereafter we had X-Men, and then Spider-Man, and now we get one a day. And speaking of Blade, we have another Blade, but this was my first introduction to Blade. This was the Blade from the Spider-Man animated series, which had a lot of great figures, at least that I remembered, because it had so many crazy guest stars from across the Marvel Universe. So we had Blade, which they really amped up his motorcycle aspect of him within this. He had the leather jacket and whatnot, but obviously very different than the Blade that came out in the Wesley Snipes, who became more of a martial arts expert. This character, this is Shadowstar. I was a huge fan of the X-Force and X-Men growing up as a kid. He made an appearance, and shortly there in Deadpool 2. For those who have not seen it, don't want to ruin it, but let's just say he's getting more screen time here than he did in Deadpool. But I always loved Shadowstar. He's kind of a know-nothing character, but he had swords, and he was from the Mojo world, if I'm not mistaken. But he was kind of cool. Interesting character. That again, he's having actually a miniseries come out in a few weeks. I might pick it up. We'll see. He's not like man. So I was a huge fan of the Iron Man toys growing up too, and what they often did with the Iron Man line, they had every possible Iron Man toy that you could imagine. And this was Samurai, and they had all these different pieces that would go on. He actually had like these swords that came out of his arms. I don't know why you would have a Samurai Iron Man, but hey, it gave you cool. But I always loved the look of him, and I think partially why I liked him a lot is because he kind of looked like a cross between Iron Man and a Power Ranger and a ninja. So it was just like, I really liked this figure growing up as a kid. I had a lot of these, and some of them I kept, some of them I did not. I'm trying to look at more. There's a lot of figures in here. I'm trying to look at the X-Men ones first. Oh, here's another one. I love this look of Havoc. I know it's super 90s, but the jacket, just like, man, that is super 90s. And the X-Men logo with so many 90s characters had that crazy, like, I don't even know what you want to call it, not mask per se, but he had Gambit and Havoc. But I love this look for Havoc back in the day. He looks like gigantic too. He's really bulky, and he had his pulsing power that he would push out. I always thought as a kid that his power came from his hands, but it seems like more now, like especially in the X-Men movies, it's more like just kind of manifests itself in like through his chest. All right, there's a bunch of wrestling toys in here. We can go through these too. I'll go through these kind of quick, but so I kind of transitioned as a kid around when mid 90s, late 90s into wrestling. I kind of got away from the superheroes when the X-Men 90s series kind of ended. Spider-Man ended. Marvel was kind of going in its decline. The animated Batman series was changing, and they had some good stuff here and there, but really wrestling became my kind of go-to during that period of time. You had the Monday Night, right before the Monday Night War start, right when like Hulk Hogan went to WCW and like Raw debuted on USA. I got more and more into wrestling, so that really made up much of my adolescence from like, I don't know, age 10 to really the end of high school. I stopped watching it mostly in college just because I didn't have the time. But I have a lot of wrestlers, so I have Xbox here. As I was a huge, I kind of like DX. I was a WCW fan first and foremost, but I did like DX here and there. As many adolescent kids, teenage kids my age did. And yes, I don't know if I could show this because, he's no longer But this is, the infamous Chris Benoit. This was, of course, way before his the horrors that it caused. But this was actually a WCW figure, if I'm not mistaken. Before, yeah, because it has the Four Horsemen logo on it. WCW, their figures kind of were not as good as WWF's going up as a kid, or WWE. They didn't have the same quality because look, at least they didn't come out as consistent. WCW seemed to change around. Their first big figures, which I don't see I have any, were gigantic and they didn't move at all. And eventually they went to more of the look of the WWF ones. Oh wow! So here's Road Warrior Animal. This was from the LOD 2000, near the end of obviously 1999, where they kind of rebranded them as the LOD 2000, and they had some horrific storylines with him and Animal, and they made Hawk and Animal, and I think Hawk was drunk or something like that. And he was really drunk in real life, and they brought it into the storyline. It ended up being quite bad, but it was the Attitude Era, so everything was cool. Jeff Jarrett, I don't know if I was a huge Jeff Jarrett fan. I think back, again, sorry for the glare, I think back the thing I was as a kid was when it came to wrestling figures, I just kind of got whoever. I didn't really have to be a huge fan of them, per se. Oh man. So one thing I did as a kid too, the early, internet was not as big as it is now, of course, but there's some cool things on the internet. And one thing that I saw with my friends and I were people making custom figures, figures of characters that weren't out yet, because back then, they didn't make as many figures, and usually it was just the bigger stars, and it took some time for figures to come out. Someone would be popular, and really their actual action figure wouldn't come out until much later. It seems like, I don't know if that's still the case anymore. So we made some custom action figures. I don't have no idea who I try to make with this. I have no clue. But this is actually the head of Ken Shamrock. I believe so, and this is the body of one of the Undertakers, and I made someone out of it, and I don't know who I was trying to make. Maybe Wrath, who he was from the WCW. He was Adam Bomb, and maybe because I liked him as a wrestler. I have no idea who that. I put yellow in his hair, so I have no clue who that's supposed to be. But I had no artistic skill whatsoever, but I tried my best. I don't know if there's more in there like that, but man, not that great. I'm not gonna. So there's some other quick ones. Here's Al Snow. Man, Al Snow. See if there's any other interesting ones. Oh, well, here you go. We smell what The Rock is cooking. I was like an anti-Rock fan for a very long time. I don't know why. I think it's because he was super popular, and I liked WCW, and it was I was trying to pretend that WWF wasn't as good, and The Rock was bad because he couldn't wrestle and he just could talk. But obviously now he's a huge star, and I kind of turned around and eventually got some of his figures. But this is one of his earlier ones. No, it's not. I had the Rocky Maivia one before when he was first out, and he had the thing that headdress thing that ran, or not headdress, but went around his with feathers and stuff like that. But eventually got rebranded and became the legend that he is. Nation of Domination figures with Farouk, Ron Simmons, and D'Lo. I think this is D'Lo Brown. I could be wrong. I believe so. So, speaking of, and oh man, the late great Owen Hart. I loved Owen Hart as a kid. He was my favorite wrestler. I hated him so much. But it was a good hate. It was him, and he was partnered with Yokozuna. That tag team. I just remember hating them so much because they would always win. And I liked Smoking Guns as a kid because they were cowboys, and they would never beat Owen Hart and Yokozuna. But then this is later, right before he got into the Blue Blazer. I think he had this gimmick, but he was such a great wrestler. I think as a kid I didn't appreciate him enough, but I always found him entertaining, and I loved to hate him. I was also a huge in growing up as a kid too. I was really into being a WCW fan. Sting was probably one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, even though he didn't really wrestle. Just that persona. I watched every night and every WCW night simply to see what he would do. And some of my favorite moments were just when he would be attacking the NWO. I remember the one night when it was NWO was in the ring, and there's a bunch of people with Sting masks were kind of just going after them, and they were just nobodies, and they got, everyone got kind of punched and punched and punched, and like thrown out of the ring until eventually the real Sting showed up, and then I dropped him, and then he kicked butt with his bat and stuff like that. But it was like one of the greatest times to be a wrestling fan. And then he wrestled Hulk Hogan, and it was an awful match, and then it kind of went downhill from there. And I think I saw Hulk Hogan. Yeah, here we go. Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Man, this was again when the WCW was changing their figures later, and they actually got much better when eventually they got there, and then they went out of business because they were run horribly. Also, I was somewhat a fan of ECW. Like, I didn't watch it regularly because it wasn't on, but I did like some of the characters, and for a period of time they had their own action figures. This is Sabu, who was, if you don't know anything about Sabu, he's just an insane man doing very insane things he would basically, from barbed wire to flaming tables to glass, whatever, he did some insane things. And one of my favorite wrestlers ever growing up was RVD. And I was so happy when they finally made an RVD figure, because like he was the one character, like he was such a cool, the acrobats and like the crazy things he would do, and we would try to make his figure through customizing things, and would never work out as well. So when he actually got an RVD figure, I was super excited for it. I still remember that. Oh, here's another Nation of Domination figure, Mark Henry. Back in the day, he was in the Nation of Domination. I never thought Mark Henry would be in the wrestling as long as he was, but it worked out. All right, well, here's another creative figure that I tried to do. So this is, I think this is Bradshaw, if I'm not mistaken. But before he became not Age of Apocalypse, but the APA. Like he was like the country boy, and I changed him into, I can't really read that, but it says Lion, and then Heart. It's all kind of dusty. I tried to make him into Chris Jericho. I don't know why. Probably because he just had blonde hair, and I didn't care about Bradshaw all that much. So I was trying to make him into... And I think actually this is a body of somebody else, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like it is. I don't know whose body it is, because this head is actually glued on. So, man, it does not look good at all. And I don't think Jericho ever wore anything like that. So I don't know why I put him in. I don't know. But hey. And I was young, I had time. So you do crazy things. I'll just go through some of these really fast. Devon Dudley, or not Devon Dudley. This is Bubba Way Dudley. So of course you need to get the tables. I had no idea I owned this. I had no clue. So if you ask me like it's name 30 wrestlers you owned as a kid, I never would have guessed I owned this figure. So that's kind of weird. And some other ones, hardcore. Yeah, Job Squad. I think this is Hardcore Henry, not Hardcore Henry. That's a movie. Bob Holly, Hardcore Holly, who's a really huge jerk. Or that's Crash, or his brother Crash. His face looks like Crash Holly, but I don't know. It could be either. Oh, I didn't even know I owned it. I remember owning this, but I don't know how, because I was never a huge Mega Man fan. But for some reason, I have this action figure. Would have been one of my friends that I traded it or something like that, but. I don't know who this character is, to be honest with you, because I never really played Mega Man. But I know it's a Mega Man character. So there's that. Bret the Hitman Hart. One of the best wrestlers ever, in my opinion. And speaking of wrestling, we're actually going to be doing a top 100 wrestling countdown for GeekCast Radio this year. So that should be exciting. I also loved Taz growing up. I thought he was the biggest badass as a kid, because when he was in ECW, then he went to WCW or WWE, and it did not work out as well. This is, again, one of the ECW figures. But he was the human suplex machine. Kane with his old costume. Man, I remember the watching when he debuted. Was when I watched pay-per-views here and there, but like when he came out, I always thought he looked super stupid. But it's grown on me. But I now I really like this, and I kind of miss this costume. And I actually really liked when he inverted the colors and it was black and red. But man, Kane. We have the Big Boss Man when he was in corporate Big Boss Man, with all the pouches and everything. It was like basically it's like, let's make Big Boss Man, but if he was drawn by Rob Liefeld, and then they made him like this. So Crush, when he came back for a period of time, and they gave him this new gimmick, and he had a tattoo on his head and it was very much like a grunge-like look, and yeah, it didn't last very long for what I remember. Yeah, so during the period of the 90s, WWF had a bunch of random like stables, and one of them were like was it DOA, yeah, and there were these guys, and they had a bunch of them. They were just like no name biker dudes, and then there were like the Los Vegas or Salvio Vegas group, and so there was two of them here. I couldn't tell you any of their names, but I think there was like two bald guys. I don't know. To basically go to a bar, hire people that look like bikers, and then we'll have a group and then call it a day. It was like WWE trying to like, we need to try to recreate what the NWO is, so let's just do everything we can. Let's just throw a bunch of out there. Speaking of that, Lex Luger is one of those characters. I believe this is Lex Luger. It looks absolutely nothing like him in the face whatsoever. But I was a big Lex Luger fan. Like, I know people don't like him, or especially when he had the gimmick, and when they try to make him like the next big thing in WWF with like him body slamming Yokozuna. But I thought he had some really great matches in WWE, in WCW, especially when he fought Hulk Hogan the one time on Nitro. But yeah, and then he kind of became crazy, as many wrestlers do. Oh wow, this is Edge, which is nothing like Edge now. It's like, yeah, he was very Sting-esque. I remember when he first came out, he was like silent, didn't say anything, and he kind of changed from that. But I was a fan of Edge when he first debuted, and this is kind of his first. I think this was his first figure. I don't know for sure, or was this when he was in the ministry? He has that symbol. I'm not sure, but I was a huge Edge fan. I was happy that he had the career he did. One of my favorite figures growing up was Roz. If you don't know his story, unfortunately, when he was part of LOD 2000, that kind of went down. But then he actually broke his neck wrestling D'Lo Brown on Monday Night Raw one year. He went for I think he was going for the running power bomb, and it kind of cracked his neck, and unfortunately he was paralyzed. But I thought he had a lot of potential to be a huge wrestler, but it just never panned out. Obviously because of what happened. Another LOD Hawk 2000, man. I remember thinking that looked really cool as a kid, and now I'm looking back at it thinking, what did they do to that great tag team? And a few more in here. Kevin Nash, back in the NWO days. Man, I was a Kevin Nash fan too. I did like Kevin Nash when he kind of got away from the NWO or had the Wolfpack, because they also had the Wolfpack Sting, which was kind of cool. And then they had like different colors of it got crazy, and then they had the LWO and the the Blue WO, but also, and then there's this was the guy who eventually became the Godfather, but I forget what he was called when he was in, I think Kamala? No, I forget. But also member of Nation's Domination. So I'm almost done. There's some more stuff in here, but again, I talked about the Iron Man figures. This was a Hulk busting Iron Man that back in the day. It's funny because now if you look at the Hulk busting Iron Man that they have now, the figures are like 3 times the size of this one. I remember buying this as a kid thinking, wow, this is huge. It's just such a gigantic figure. And now figures are so much bigger than they ever used to be growing up. Speaking of big figures, we got Gray Hulk. I don't even know. It's almost like a Joe Fixit type of Hulk with the pants and like the button-up shirt that's been ripped. It's kind of a cool, very like Frankenstein-esque in the face. But yeah, I don't even know where this came from. I'll be on this box, but yeah, gigantic Hulk. Oh, nice. We have Spawn, the original Spawn figure, back in the day. I think these that like in package actually are worth something, but this was my brother's, weirdly enough, but it got caught into my stuff. And then I have Medieval Spawn, who was even more badass with the metal and the spikes. That like right when Tom McFarlane's action figures really started kicking off. And then we have Bane. I don't know if this is from the movie. I'm not sure. I know it's not from Dark Knight Rises, but I don't know where this figure is from. Batman and Robin. I don't know, but it's a cool looking Bane. All right, and then lastly, for figure wise, just Blizzard. I think this was Blizzard. I forget. This was from the Iron Man line, if I'm not mistaken. But The other thing I have in here is, well, I have a previous catalog from Marvel. This is back when Astonishing X-Men was coming out. So let's take a look. I'm just going to pull to a page, see something that was being announced. Oh, wow. So Civil War. Sounds about right. That's about when I was really back in the comics. And there actually are some comics in here. Nice. We got What If Venom was Punisher? And now they're actually, that's kind of interesting because now we are getting the What If Punisher Spider-Man comic coming up pretty soon. We got what is that? What if Professor X of the X-Men had become the Juggernaut? And we have what if the Punisher killed Daredevil? Nice. I think usually with the what if stories, to be honest with you, is like the best part of it was the title, and then usually the story was just okay. But I'm not sure. Oh, nice. I have some baseball cards here, or cards in general. So we have a Kobe Bryant. I think this is actually a Kobe Bryant rookie card. Nice. It's probably not worth anything. I collected baseball cards and football cards and hockey cards growing up as well. I really miss that. It was like the original Loot Crate, right? Where you'd buy a pack of cards for like $1 or something, not knowing what's in it. You might get like 3 players that never played it down or played a minute, and then like really one good card. But I remember growing up and how even back when he first came out, Kobe Bryant was like a big deal. So even though he didn't play much, but yeah, this is a rookie card. All right, Dominic Hasek, rookie card as well. I was a huge hockey fan growing up as a kid. I don't know why. I think it was partially because I love the Mighty Ducks movies. It kind of went over, so I collect a lot of hockey cards too. And I remember some of those names. I still remember Dominic Hasek, Patrick Roy, all those. I knew so many more character, actual players back then than I do now. Like I don't know anyone anymore, but collecting the cards. Nice, Edgerrin James. You can't really see it. Sorry for the glare, but it's Edgerrin James rookie card. This is first year for the Colts. Nice. 2001. Very cool. Gary Payton rookie card from 1990. Man, that looks very 90s with a gigantic phone, lottery pick. Again, I don't know if these are worth anything. I doubt it. I'm sure cards aren't worth anything anymore, like comics aren't. Here we got rookie class Keyshawn Johnson rookie card as well. I remember him coming out and like I watched ESPN ad nauseum as a kid, and just all the hype and everything that went around Keyshawn Johnson. I think he was picked second that year. Jeff Hornacek rookie card. I was a huge Jazz fan. When I say that, I realize that sounds weird. A huge Utah Jazz fan, and so it was Jeff Hornacek was on that team. Karl Malone, and I don't even know how I really became one. I actually became one because I got a Karl Malone card, and it was worth a lot of money. And it had me like looking into the Karl Malone, and I got a book about Karl Malone and him being the mailman, and I just developed into becoming a Jazz fan. And then, a few years later, they ended up going to the finals a few times. And I was like one of the few people that was actually rooting for them to beat the Bulls. And that was a heartbreaking, Jordan's last shot, or what was his last shot, was like a heartbreaking moment to me. Because it was Karl Malone not getting his championship ring. Now, Michael Irvin rookie card. I hated the Cowboys as a kid. I'm a Giants fan. I hated the Cowboys as a kid. I still kind of do. I hated Michael Irvin. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to try to get your rookie card if I can have it. Again, I have no idea if these are worth anything. I'm going to go with probably not. But if you're a card collector, this is David Terrell. I don't think he ever panned out, to be honest with you. But it's a cool looking card, at least. I think this came from the pack. I remember growing up as like one of the last things I collected this was 2001. So this is around the time I stopped collecting cards. But I would get these packs which were just rookie cards. It's plain, and I got some decent ones out of it. And then we got the Tim Brown rookie card. So, interesting. Got some more cards here. If you're sticking with me, thank you. I appreciate it. Don Mattingly. I don't know why that's in this. I don't know if Don Mattingly's... It's not his rookie card, just a normal card. See if there's any interesting ones that are worth talking about. Clyde Drexler. Santana Moss rookie card. More Clyde Drexler. Clyde Clyde the Glide Drexler. Let's see. We got Robert Ferguson. Don't know who he never. No. Ryan Klesko. I do remember him. I loved the Braves growing up. I mean, I remember they like dominated the '90s. They were so good. Oh, Nolan Ryan. Man, I'm growing up as a kid. Like Nolan Ryan was like a legend, just because of all his strikeouts. He just seemed like the ultimate pitcher. Like playing, was it RBI baseball or whatever? Or I forget. It was just like, you always feared going up against Nolan Ryan because he was like the biggest badass when it came to pitchers. Bo Jackson. Speaking of badasses, Bo knows Bo Jackson. His baseball card. Probably one of the greatest athletes ever. Joe Dumas rookie card. PJ Armstrong rookie card, who I know mostly because of playing NBA Jam, and you couldn't play Jordan, but you could play PJ Armstrong. Haha. Nice. Lawrence Taylor. Being a Giants fan, Lawrence Taylor. It was $1.50 back then, so probably now it's worth $3 just because of inflation. Or maybe it's gone down since he's gone to jail so many times. Nice. Joe Montana card. And it's him playing for Notre Dame, but I don't think it's a rookie card. Looking at the year 95, so no, he wouldn't be a rookie then. There's some other kind of knickknacks in here, but nothing really significant. Another Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco rookie card. Anything else of coolness? Oh, Kevin Garnett rookie card. Yeah. Excuse me. Oh, here we go. So, I wasn't big into Transformers as a kid, but I did love Beast Wars, and I think I actually had a few of them, and this is Cheetah? I forget his actual full name, but I'm one of the few I had. I had him, excuse me, and the Transformers Rex. Oh, nice. Here we go. I hate the Yankees, but that's a Derek Jeter rookie card right there. That's very cool. Probably not worth anything. I don't know. I have no idea. But, hey. I'm surprised I even kept this in like good condition, because especially with baseball, because you get the rookie cards and they really want to pan out to years upon later. But I don't know if I got this after it goes big. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. We got some more cards in here, like Dave Winfield card, but just But as many, I thought I would earn my college degree by collecting cards and comics, but it just, or let it at least pay for it. But of course, that never panned out. So and we just want to see my art skills. I said about being a jazz fan. I made this in art. I have no idea what this is meant to be, but it says Utah Jazz. It was kind of their colors. I think this is probably looks like it was made by a crazy person or a man with only elbows, because I have no artistic skill whatsoever. I have no idea what this is supposed to be. Or I think it's made out of clay. It has my name on it. I'm surprised I put my name on this and I kept it. That's not great. Not great. I am happy I don't have art class anymore. But anyways, I thought it'd be kind of fun. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. But just kind of random enough. And then just a bunch of assorted cards left. So there's nothing really big left. Just kind of a couple cards. And, oh, there's one more. We got this. The 1996 Steelers. Alright, why not? Cordell Stewart, Andrew Thigpen. No idea why I have this, because I wasn't really a Steelers fan. But someone probably gave it to me. It's probably one of those things where someone knew I liked football as a kid. So they're like, and I lived in Pennsylvania. So like, hey, here's a Steelers thing. And I said, yeah. And I put it away, and now I'm looking at it 22 years later, which is kind of crazy. Alrighty, well, that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I'm sorry. It won't probably ever happen again unless my parents find another bin of nothingness. For now, just remember, comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. If you want to find out more stuff from us, you can go to geekcastradio.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.